Hello, good day. Sir Howard here. Today, I want to discuss a very important topic para sa lahat ng psych majors, and this is intelligence. Intelligence is a very psychological concept. Talagang ini-expect tayo ng mga tao na marami tayong alam on how intelligence works. So, this is a two-part lecture. The first part is this one, where I'm going to talk about the definition of intelligence, and then the second part, yung aabangan nyo na i-release ko, will be talking about how to improve on human intelligence. But let's just focus on the first part. For the meantime, ano bang ibig sabihin when you say that someone is intelligent, or in another word, smart? Okay? And if I'm not mistaken, I asked you to watch a movie entitled The Gifted. Sana pinanood nyo ito as you continue this video, because there are a lot of scenes in the movie na babalik-balikan ko for me to support the points I'm going to make about intelligence. Kasi sa movie, maraming mga pinakitang mga eksena doon na makakapagpaliwanag, makakapagpalinaw on the nature of human intelligence. So it's very important that you first watch this movie before you continue watching this video. Since we are talking about intelligence, let me just let you do this exercise para lang ma-set yung tone natin on our discussion. I want you to visualize someone in your life right now you personally know na makukonsider mong intelligent or smart. If you know a lot of people who are intelligent or smart, choose the person who is the most intelligent, yung pinakamatalino. And then I want you to recall the different moments you have with this person. Alalahanin mo yung mga iba't ibang encounter mo or experiences mo with this person that you consider smart. And then on a piece of paper, kuha ka ng piece of paper dyan or a notebook, isulat mo yung mga words, adjectives that makes you say or that will explain why you consider this person smart. So yung nakita mo dito sa number 1, kuha ka ng kapirasong papel, ilagay mo yung mga words that will explain why you consider this person smart. Okay? Now we are going to compare how you define intelligence based on how psychology defines intelligence. And the best way to do that is to check on how the APA, the American Psychological Association, defines intelligence. Kung pupunta ka sa website ng APA and then hanapin mo yung kanilang dictionary at hanapin mo yung kahulugan ng intelligence, according to the APA, intelligence means this: the ability to derive information, learn from experience, adapt to the environment, understand, and correctly utilize thought and reason. So maraming mga markers para ma-express yung intelligence. But for me, although the definition is okay, it's a little bit long. I think the definition of intelligence can be further simplified. Ano ba talaga yung essence? Ano ba yung heart of being intelligent? I would say you can group or categorize these many words into 2 core skills. Dalawa lang yung tatandaan nyo that will define the heart, the soul of being intelligent. And that is what? Ano yung dalawang core skills na yan? Intelligence is all about your ability to solve problems and answer questions. Yan na lang yung tandaan nyo instead of the many words here. So from these words, all these words can be captured by the 2 core skills: solve problems and answer questions. This is the essence of being intelligent. So meron na kaagad application dito. If you want to estimate how intelligent a person is, one way to do that is you give that person problems to solve and questions to answer. And then from there, more or less, kaya mo nang ma-estimate kung gaano ba katalino yung kausap mo. In fact, let me do this right now. I would like to estimate more or less how intelligent you are. I'm going to let you experience or use your own intelligence. So I am going to give you a number of problems and questions to answer. Okay? So on a piece of paper, I want you to answer the following questions. Ready? If today is Wednesday, what was yesterday? Number 2, If today is Wednesday, what will be tomorrow? Number 3, Mary's mom has 4 kids, April, May, June, and blank. Number 4, Mary has 4 daughters. Each of her daughters has a brother. How many children does Mary have? If you need to pause the video, just go ahead. If you need more time to solve this. And then, let's go mathematical. I want you to solve the equation. 3 times 7 minus 2 minus 4 plus 3 times 2. Okay? So, kayo na lang bahala mag-check kung ano yung mga tamang sagot. You can just Google the correct answers to these questions. But what's the point of that exercise? The point is, for you to answer all those questions, for you to solve all those problems, you needed your intelligence. Because again, what's the essence of intelligence? Your ability to solve problems and answer questions. That's why going back to the movie The Gifted, Aika and Zoe are super intelligent. Bakit? You connect that to the definition because they can solve so many problems and they can answer so many questions. Kaya hate na hate sila ng mga classmates nila, kaya sila binubuli eh. Kasi sobrang talino nila, ang dami nilang problema at mga tanong na kayang sagutin. Because again, that's the essence of being smart. Alright? So quick information about intelligence that I think all psych majors should know. Alam nyo ba, number 1, na ang katalinuhan kaya nating masukat. In English, it is something that we can measure. In fact, in psychology, we have a way of categorizing people according to their intelligence. Some people are very superior, high average, average, low average, borderline, extremely low, and that depends on how intelligent you are quantitatively. Susukatin natin yung intelligence mo, ipipinpoint natin kung ano yung iyong IQ, and then doon manggagaling yung label na itatawag sa'yo in terms of your intellectual capacity. Now, how do we get the IQ scores? How do we estimate a person's level of intelligence by using IQ tests? I'm sure you are familiar with IQ tests. IQ stands for intellectual quotient. This is the measure, the unit of measure for intelligence. Ang tubig, ang unit of measure dyan is liters or milliliters. When we talk about intelligence, that's IQ. So, paano kinukuha ang IQ? Kinukuha ang IQ by the use of different IQ tests, which we will discuss when you take up your psychological measurement subjects. And also, alam nyo ba yung IQ? Meron niyang formula, no? It's mental age divided by chronological age times 100. So, again, when you enter psychological measurement, doon natin pag-uusapan ng mas malalim why the formula of IQ is like this or why the normal IQ would be 100. Merong reason yan eh. Bakit ang normal IQ is 100? We'll talk about that when you take your psychological measurement. But for the meantime, ang dapat mo lang ma-realize ngayon is intelligence is something that we can exactly measure. Hindi na dadaan yung katalinuhan sa tansya. Because some people do that, no? Ako feeling ko matalino ako eh. Or feeling ko genius ako. O yung kapitbahay ko feeling ko mababa ang intelligence niyan. You cannot estimate intelligence using your feelings. There is an exact way, an objective way in measuring intelligence through the use of IQ tests. Number 2, everyone is intelligent but in different levels and degree. Kung babalikan mo yung definition of what it means to be smart, halos lahat naman ng tao kayang mag-solve ng problem at sumagot ng mga basic na tanong, which means that all people would be intelligent. But, hindi tayo pare-pareho ng tindi ng intelligence. Some people are more intelligent than other people. And that depends on the kinds of questions that you answer or the kinds of problems that you can solve. For example, kapag binigyan kita ng isang mathematical problem, 3 times 3 times 6, kung masasagot mo yan, does that mean you're intelligent? Of course. But you will be less intelligent compared to someone who can answer this question. Diba? Kung hanggang dito lang yung kaya mo, eto hindi mo kaya, intelligent ka pa rin. But a person who can solve this and who can also solve this, he or she is more intelligent than you. Pero pareho kayong intelligent. Magkaiba lang kayo ng degree of intelligence. In fact, going back to that table I've shown you a while ago, it shows na iba-iba yung degrees of intelligence. There are some people na mababa ang degree of intelligence. If you have seen the movie Moron 5, this movie shows how intelligent people are in the lower range. Kaya nga sila tinawag na Moron 5. Yung mga 5 lalaki dito, as in ang bababa ng level of intelligence nila. Very limited yung kaya nilang tanong na masagot. Very limited yung mga problema na kaya nilang isolve. On the other hand, from the lower part of the table, meron din naman mga tao na nandoon sa taas, sobrang tatalino naman, and these are the people called gifted, or in our own language, mas common, yung genius. Meron talagang mga taong mga henyo. No, wag nating isipin na ang mga genius nag-e-exist lang in movies. Because there are already a lot of movies made about people who are geniuses that we have a tendency to think that these are just movies. Wala naman talagang taong ganyan katalino. That is a wrong belief. Meron talagang mga tao, real people in our everyday life whose intelligence is very high to the point of giftedness. One example of this would be the former Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago. Kung titignan mo yung kanyang academic achievements, talagang makukonclude mo that Senator Miriam was a very intelligent person. I would say gifted. I would say genius level. For example, take a look at some of her academic achievements. Just browse through it. Yan yung kanyang mga na-accomplish academically. That's only page 1. Merong pang page 2 yan. Again, just browse through it. Merong pag page 3 yan, again, just browse through it. Ang point ko lang is, all of these things, hindi yan magagawa ni Senator Miriam if her intelligence is low or even average. Para ma-accomplish mo lahat yan, definitely yung intelligence mo sobrang taas. You should be in the upper part of the table that I've shown you a while ago. Dapat gifted ka talaga for you to be able to achieve that much. And again, real people or genius people are real people. Meron talagang mga taong ganyan ka talino. Now, whenever I talk about genius or giftedness, no, many people ask me, especially young kids, how intelligent is God? After all, God is the author of intelligence. Right? Ginawa lang niya yung intelligence. So kung siya ang may gawa ng intelligence, ginawa lang niya yung intelligence, then that means God must be really, really smart. So to answer that question, how intelligent is God? The book of Job in the Bible answers that question. Kung gusto mong ma-estimate kung gaano katalino ang Diyos, read the book of Job. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Job, the character in the Bible. He was a good guy, he was very wealthy, and then all of a sudden, sa isang iglap, nawala lahat ng kayamanan niya, namatay yung mga mahal niya sa buhay, and then he also got sick. Okay? Now, there was a point in the story where the wife of Job, along with his friends, began to question God. They were trying to influence Job to question God's intelligence. Kung ang Diyos talagang matalino, why would He allow all these bad things to happen to a good guy like you? And Job was on his way to doubting God. Job was on his way to believing his friends and his wife. Malapit na niyang questionin ang wisdom ng Diyos. But before that happened, ano nangyari? God talked to Job. God talked to Job. And we can see that in Job chapter 38, verses 2 to 3. Who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? It was God talking here. And I think God is referring to the friends of Job here and his wife. So medyo galit ang Diyos dyan kasi merong nagko-question sa kanyang mga plano. But I would like you to focus on verse 3. Brace yourself like a man. God said to Job, I will question you and you shall answer me. pause right there and I want you to recall our definition of intelligence. How do we define intelligence? Ask questions and solve problems. Now look at what God will do here. Anong sabi niya? Brace yourself like a man. I will question you and you shall answer me. How does God deal with Job's doubt? God gives Job an IQ test. Can you imagine? That's how God deals with human doubt. He makes us realize how smart He is and how not smart we are. Yan yung ginawa ng Diyos in the following passages. God gives Job questions to answer to make Job realize that he knows so little compared to what God knows. And so if you read the entire chapter 38, ang daming mga questions doon that God gave to Job. I call this God's IQ test. Nagbibigay ng IQ test ang Diyos dito kay Job. And what are some of these questions and problems that God gave Job to answer or to solve? Let me read some. In this part, God gives Job questions about geography. Sabi ng Diyos kay Job, "Where are you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstone?" Bakit tayo merong mga dimensions? Meron tayong length, meron tayong width, meron tayong height. Saan nagmula yung mundo in the first place? Those are God's questions to Job. And did you know that up until today, modern geography does not know the answer to these questions? Kahit si Job, hindi niya alam. Kahit ako, hindi ko alam. From geography, God doesn't stop right there. He gives Job questions about, this time, oceanography, the study of oceans. God asks Job, "Who shut up the sea behind doors when it burst forth from the womb?" Saan galing yung tubig? That's the best we could do in science. We know that water is H2O. But did you know we have no capability to make an artificial water? Alam natin na ang tubig ay H2O, pero yung tayo mismo yung gagawa ng tubig, we cannot do it. Verse 9, "When I made the clouds its garment and wrapped it in thick darkness, when I fixed limits for it and set its doors and bars in place, when I said, 'This far you may come and no farther, here is where your proud waves halt.'" When you talk about waves of the ocean, their behaviors, alam nyo ba meron palang mga formula yan? Meron talagang exact numbers that the waves follow. Na hanggang dun lang yung behaviors nila, hanggang dun lang yung lakas, hanggang dun lang yung paglaki. We can completely predict that in oceanography. Question, saan nanggaling yung ganong setting? Who set the law or the laws that waves follow? Again, Job doesn't know. Modern science doesn't know. I don't know. And then from oceanography, God moves to astronomy. God gives Job astronomical questions. Tinanong siya ng Diyos, "Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons, or lead out the bear in its cubs? Do you know the laws of the heavens?" Alam nyo ba, in this first part, God was talking about constellations. In the second part, verse 33, God was talking about the laws of the heavens. It used to be in ancient astronomy, astronomers believed that the universe, the outer space, is random. Random events happen in outer space. Dati, akala natin dati ganun. Na lahat ng mga planeta na nandoon, lahat ng stars na nagliliwanag doon, tsamba lang na nandoon. But modern astronomy have discovered that that's not true, because when you go to outer space and you observe the behaviors of the heavenly bodies, what do we realize? These things are not random. There are laws. We can completely predict behaviors of the heavenly bodies, the stars, the planets, the asteroids. In fact, Albert Einstein, his theory of relativity is one example. Yung theory of relativity ni Einstein discovered that indeed the universe is following a law that dictates its behaviors. In fact, even the positions of the heavenly bodies in the outer space are finely tuned. It is exactly where it is supposed to be. One minute change, one small change that you do in the positions of the heavenly bodies, the entire universe would not exist. Life will not be possible here on earth. For example, the distance of the earth from the sun. According to modern day astronomers, you change the position of the earth just a little bit towards the sun, life is not possible. You move the earth just a little bit away from the sun, life is not possible. The same thing with the positions of the planet from each other. Yung layo ng Uranus from Jupiter. Yung layo ng Pluto from Venus. These are all exact. You change any of those positions just a little bit, the entire universe will not exist. It's like the entire universe is indeed finely tuned. Plinano. It's not a random existence. And Einstein confirms that. He was able to study these laws of the universe. Later on, Stephen Hawking. And later on, all the other modern day astronomers are now agreeing that there are laws, mathematical laws that we can study to further understand the outer space. Kaya nga nagkaroon ng astronomy. Because it's possible to study the laws of the universe as mentioned in the passage. Do you know the laws of the heavens? And when there are laws, then there must be a lawgiver. How did God set those laws? Job didn't know. I don't know, but God knows. And then from the outer space, God goes back to the earth and then he talks about ecosystem. He gives Job questions about the ecosystem. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions? When they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in a thicket, who provides food for the raven when its young cry out to God and wonder about for lack of food? Sounds familiar in high school? This is food chain. This is food web. Para maging maayos yung pag-ikot ng prey and predator, para hindi na out of balance yung nature. Who sustains all that processes? God does. But how does he do that? Job doesn't know. I don't know. Scientists don't exactly know. The best we could do is to describe what's a food chain, what's a food web, but the process in which this is sustained, nobody knows but God. And take note that in all these questions that God gave to Job, Job was not able to answer any of these questions. He was completely silent, which tells us that Job's intelligence is way, way, way below compared to God's intelligence. And you generalize that principle in our everyday life, human intelligence is far away from God's intelligence. How far is God's intelligence from human intelligence? Well, we don't have the exact IQ score of God. If we compare God's IQ to the IQ of the smartest person in the world, we don't have the exact number, but what we are sure about is God will always outsmart the smartest human being. Because God is the author of intelligence. Although we can estimate, in Isaiah, inestimate yan eh. How far is God's intelligence from human intelligence? Put it this way. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, said the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Imagine niyo gaano kalayo, gaano kataas yung tip of the earth hanggang doon sa heavenly bodies. How far is that? I don't know, but I'm sure it's very far. And that's how far, that's how more advanced God's intelligence is compared to human intelligence. And so, given this, the only psychological response that you can give here is humility, awe, worship, trust. Huwag nating subukang alamin lahat. Huwag natin subukang maging kasing talino ng Diyos because we will just end up being disappointed. In fact, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are highly anxious because they want to know everything. They want to be as intelligent as God. Don't do that. Let's just study what we can. But for the things that we cannot know, for the things that we will not know, we trust God for that. Hindi yung lahat gusto natin alam natin. Hindi yung lahat ng unknown gusto nating ma-discover. Because there are certain things that God did not mean for us to discover, only He knows. I think that will improve our psychological health if we practice humility in our everyday life in terms of how intelligent we are. That's why when Job realized this, going back to Job, this time from Job chapter 40, what did Job answer God? After all those questions that God gave him, Job said, I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer. Twice, but I will say no more. And I hope ganyan din yung maging response natin when it comes to our intelligence. Let's acknowledge the fact that our intelligence has a limit. But God doesn't have a limit. Alright? Now, ito yung next question na ibibigay ko. Ano lang, parang quick reflection lang. It's just a yes or no question. And I want you to answer this honestly. Would you consider yourself intelligent or smart? I mean, if somebody asks you to describe yourself, would the word intelligent be one of the words that you will use to describe yourself? If you are most students na tinanong ko ng ganyang tanong, 85% of the students I asked, their answer would be no. They would not consider themselves intelligent, which I think is a wrong answer. Okay? Let me explain why the answer no, you're not intelligent is a wrong answer. Let's go back to the definition of intelligence. Ano bang implications niyan? Remember the definition of intelligence? Your ability to solve problems and answer questions. Given that definition, your answer here must be yes. Pero i-explain ko bakit mali yung sagot na no. Number one, what can we learn from this? What implications can we learn? Number one, that intelligence is an asset. I hope you learned that. Okay? When you say asset, this is something good for us, something that adds value to something. So when you have intelligence in your life, when you enhance your intelligence, you are increasing the value of your life. Good things happen to you, such as what? You pass exams. You're able to find work. Because you're able to find work, you excel at your work. Kasi ang talino mo doon sa ginagawa mo, mabilis kang napopromote. And the more you practice intelligence, the more likely you become wealthier. Kasi lumalaki yung sweldo mo, binibigyan ng value yung ginagawa mo because you are so smart in what you do, and later on, you also gain power. And speaking of wealth and power, going back to the gifted, that's what Aika and Zoe are. They're both wealthy, they're both powerful, not because of their beauty, but because they are smart. Although yes, maganda sila, no? Pero the reason why dumami pera nila, the reason why naging influential sila, it's because of their intelligence. Secondary na lang yung beautiful. But what made them wealthy, what made them powerful, it's intelligence. So for those of you who would like to be wealthier, who would like to be more powerful, you work on your intelligence, not on your beauty. And in connection to this, speaking of wealth and power, especially power dahil malapit ng eleksyon, let's connect the issue of intelligence on our future leader. Naghahanap tayo ng bagong presidente. One application that we can use here is one attribute that we need to look for from a candidate is intelligent. You know why? Because being the president of the Philippines, it's all about solving problems and answering questions, right? Kung sino man ang next president natin, kakaharapin niya yung maraming mga tanong, maraming mga problema na dapat solusyonan. How do you deal with the COVID-19 pandemic? How do you deal with poverty? How do you lower crime rates? How do you achieve peace in the Philippines? These are real questions, real problems to solve. And what do you need to solve this? Intelligence. So kapag pipili ka ng kandidato mo, sana huwag kang nakabase sa favorite color mo, huwag kang nakabase sa result ng surveys, huwag kang nakabase sa iboboto ng mga kabarkada mo. Being a psych major, you know what to look for: intelligence. So the key question to ask here among all the candidates, sino ang pinakamatalino sa kanila? Sino sa kanila ang may kakayanan to solve problems and answer questions? Kaya agree ako sa mga public debates. Sana bago mangyari yung election, magkaroon talaga ng public debates where all these aspiring presidents can be seen publicly answering questions, solving problems. Kasi that's the time that we can gauge how intelligent these people are. Or another approach to estimate how smart they are is you go retroactive. Tignan mo yung kanilang mga past performances. Tignan mo yung kanilang mga past records. Sino ba sa kanila ang may pinakamaraming problemang nasolve? Sino sa kanila ang may pinakamaraming tanong na nasagot, na nakabuti sa bayan? Those are good gauges to help you determine who to vote for in the coming election. O, diba? Meron ka agad tayong application, ha? Implication number 1 pa lang yan. Now we move on to implication number 2. I hope you realize that you are intelligent. Now we go back to my question a while ago. For those of you who considered yourself not smart, you answered no, that's the wrong answer. Because whether you like it or not, you are intelligent. Paano ko nasabi? Remember our definition of intelligence? Your ability to solve problems and answer questions. And let's go back to those exercises I gave you a while ago. Ilang tanong yon? 5 problems to solve, right? Question. Doon sa 5 problems na binigay ko kanina, how many questions should you get right for you to be considered intelligent? Alam nyo anong sagot? Isa lang. All you need is to correctly answer 1 question for you to be considered intelligent. Now, I'm sure 100% na doon sa 5 tanong na binigay ko kanina, at least meron kang isang nakuha doon. And believe it or not, that is already enough for you to be considered as smart or intelligent. Okay? Alam nyo, bakit ba yung maraming mga tao hindi sila naniniwala na matalino sila? Hindi lang naman ikaw yan eh. I mean, I also do this in my face-to-face classes before the pandemic. Whenever I ask students, who among you here believe you are smart? Raise your hand. 95% of the time, less than 10 people will raise their hands. In other words, a lot of people don't believe they are intelligent. And you know where is that coming from? If you are one of those people who answered no, you're not intelligent, I know where it came from. Because in your mind, you are holding the traditional view of intelligence. Anong ibig sabihin ng traditional view of intelligence? You equate your intelligence on your academic performance. Kaya ka nag-no, hindi mo naman kasi naalala yung sarili mo na mataas ang general average mo. You don't remember yourself being sent to compete against other schools in quiz bees. Hindi ka naman cum laude, hindi ka naman summa cum laude, hindi ka naman valedictorian, hindi ka naman nag-i-special math, hindi ka naman pet ng mga teachers mo. So, the traditional view of intelligence believes that intelligence is dependent on your academic performance, which I would say is wrong. If you are one of those people who is holding a traditional view of intelligence, you need to scrap that out from your head. Kaya ka hindi naniniwalang smart ka. Because the way you define smart is very traditional, it's very academic. Buti pa si Albert Einstein eh. Being a genius himself, meron siyang correct understanding of intelligence. He said, everybody is a genius. Actually, unang statement pa lang eh, the traditional view of intelligence will not agree. Schools will not agree. Doon kasi galing yung traditional view of intelligence, no, from the schools. Because in the perspective of the traditional view of intelligence, not everyone is a genius. Very few are geniuses. Sino lang yung mga genius? Yung mga nasa first section, yung nananalo sa mga quiz bee. Sila yung mga genius. But in the eyes of Albert Einstein, everybody is a genius. And he continues, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Why do we believe hindi tayo genius? Because we believe that our intelligence must be measured by our ability to climb a tree, while we are a fish. And that's unfair. Can you imagine that? Bigyan mo ng test yung isda. Ano yung test ng isda? Climb a tree. Tapos yung isda, nung hindi siya makaklimb ng tree, anong conclusion? You're not intelligent. That's not fair. The problem with that is, climbing a tree is not the appropriate way to test the intelligence of a fish. And the truth is, not all people are fish. May mga tao, dog. May mga tao, dolphin. May mga tao, lion. May mga tao, pusa. Of course, I'm using metaphors, no? Animals here pertain to the different forms of intelligences. Iba-iba tayo ng klase ng intelligence that we should be measuring in different ways. The problem with traditional view of intelligence, they are measuring different intelligences in the same way. Ano yung climb a tree in real life? Inside the schools, what is that test? The 1/4 sheet of paper. The midterm exam. The final exam. The diagnostic exam. Those are the only ways that the traditional view of intelligence measures intelligence, which is, again, in the perspective of Albert Einstein, very limited. Very narrow. We should not limit the definition of intelligence based on your overall performance in schools. And a lot of psychologists are now agreeing with that idea, tulad ni Howard Gardner. Isa siya sa mga proponent ng multiple intelligences view, which is a more modern view of being smart. In multiple intelligences view, people can still be smart even outside the school. Maraming klase ng talino na hindi nakikita sa loob ng classroom. Kasi ang mga traditional schools, ang traditional view of intelligence, very biased towards verbal linguistic and logico-mathematical. Schools rarely value or see intelligences under naturalistic, bodily kinesthetic, musical rhythmic, so on and so forth. Masyadong bias sa verbal linguistic and logico-mathematical. And Howard Gardner feels strongly about this. Gusto niya mas palawakin natin yung definition ng katalinuhan. Matalino ka pa rin kahit bodily kinesthetic ka. Matalino ka pa rin kahit naturalistic intelligence ka. Matalino ka pa rin kahit interpersonal ang intelligence mo. That's why he wrote 2 books about this to support his view, which I highly recommend you read, Frames of Mind and Multiple Intelligences, both written by Howard Gardner to elaborate, to support his view on what it means to be smart. Again, ang point lang naman ni Howard Gardner is there are other ways to be smart other than being inside the school. Don't get me wrong. For those of you who are getting good grades in school, those of you with awards coming from your schools, you have a lot of achievements when you were in high school. Don't get me wrong. Are you smart? Yes, you are. You are academically smart. Hindi natin dinideny yun. Hindi ko sinasabing hindi kayo matalino. Pero, huwag sarado ang isip na yun lang ang paraan para maging matalino. Somebody may not have the medals that you have. Somebody may not have a high school diploma or even a college diploma, yet that somebody can be still smarter than you. Nagigets nyo? There are other ways to be intelligent outside the school. Let us not make schools monopolize intelligence. Kahit wala ka sa eskwelahan, kahit hindi ka nakapag-aral formally, pwede ka pa rin maging matalino. That's the reason why there is a character in the movie, Mark Ferrer. Diba? If I'm going to ask you, matalino ba si Mark Ferrer? What's your answer? Depends on what view of intelligence you're going to use. In the traditional view of intelligence, Mark Ferrer will not be smart. Definitely, he deserves to be kicked out of school. Bakit? Hindi naman siya magaling academically in the movie, right? Sinisigaw-sigawan na ng teacher niya sa calculus, nagpapagawa lang ng assignment kay Zoe, hindi makapagsalita ng maayos na English. So in terms of academic skills, Mark Ferrer sucks. And so he's not intelligent. But when you use the more modern view of intelligence, such as the multiple intelligences, your answer will change. Mark Ferrer becomes smart, becomes multi-talented. Right? Well, i-profile mo si Mark Ferrer. Among the 8 intelligences identified by Gardner, saan mataas si Mark Ferrer? I would pick 3 intelligences. Number 1, he's an athlete, so that's bodily kinesthetic. Yes. Your ability to move on the court, your ability to win games in your sport, it's an expression of intelligence that must be respected. Other than that, Mark Ferrer is also interpersonal because he's good with relating with other people. He knows how to communicate his feelings, he knows how to make friends, he knows how to play with his teammates, he knows how to negotiate, he knows how to manipulate people. Those are all expressions of interpersonal intelligence. Other than that, I would say Mark Ferrer is also good in intrapersonal intelligence. Naiintindihan niya yung sarili niya. That's intrapersonal intelligence. Gaano ka kagaling umintindi ng sarili mo. Your ability to answer basic questions about yourself. What do you want? What do you hate? Where do you plan to go? What's your plan in the future? Where are you good at? What are the things you are not good at? Intrapersonal intelligence yan eh. And Mark Ferrer is like that. He knows what he wants. He knows his goals. He knows his priorities. See? All of a sudden, nagbago yung sagot natin, no? Now, Mark Ferrer is multi-talented. From Mark Ferrer needs to be kicked out of school. What's the difference? What view of intelligence are you using? Is it the traditional view or the more modern view of intelligence? And let me emphasize that there are real-life Mark Ferrers in the world. Huwag niyong isipin na si Mark Ferrer in the movie is just a fictional character. Kasi marami talagang tao sa totoong buhay na hindi magaling sa eskwelahan but they are intelligent in some other ways. One example would be Bill Gates. He said, I failed in some subjects in exam. Can you imagine Bill Gates failing subjects in exams? Meaning, hindi siya ganon katalino academically. But my friend passed in all. Now he is an engineer in Microsoft and I am the owner of Microsoft. Question, pareho bang matalino si Bill Gates and his friend? Yes, pareho. An engineer is smart. You have to be academically smart if you are to be an engineer. Pero si Bill Gates na hindi nakatapos at hindi engineer, would you consider him smart? Of course. You see, what's the point here? They are both smart, but in their own different ways. This guy is smart academically, the engineer. Bill Gates is a dropout. But he excels in other forms of intelligences, not limited to the academic intelligence. The same thing with these guys. Lahat naman yan school dropout eh. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, our very own Manny Pacquiao, maraming umaapi kay Manny ha. Especially when he was starting in politics, a lot of people are questioning his intelligence. But then again, if you apply the modern view of intelligence, Manny Pacquiao is multi-talented. bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal intelligence, maybe intrapersonal intelligence. He's also smart in his own way, not in the academic sense. You see? Because again, in the academic world, yan ang ayoko sa academic world eh. Sa traditional view of intelligence, we tend to undervalue some intelligences and overvalue the others. Again, what do we overvalue? Verbal linguistic, logico-mathematical, the favorites. But the academic world, the traditional view of intelligence belittles the following: visual-spatial, musical-rhythmic, and bodily kinesthetic. Paano ko nasabi na minamaliit ng traditional schools yan? What do we call those subjects that we take in school that hits on these intelligences? Anong tawag daw sa mga subjects na yon? Music, PE, home economics, you call them minor subjects, which I think is very insulting. Imagine if a person is good in music, or if a person is good in home economics or PE, and then the school calls your intelligence minor. That's insulting. And I think that also insults God. Because whenever God does something, it's always major. It's of high value. Whatever spiritual gift He gives us, it must be treated as a major intelligence. But you see, in the traditional schools, having traditional view of intelligence, those intelligences are considered minor, not a priority, not that important. This is where I think Saint Benilde enters the picture. Many students ask me, anong pinagkaiba ng Lasal sa Benilde? For those of you who are Lasallians, let me just correct some misconceptions that most Lasallians have towards Benildians. Number one, it's not true na mas matatalino ang mga taga-Lasal kumpara sa mga taga-Benilde. That's not true. Remember, I teach in two schools for almost 10 years now. And I would say, in terms of academic intelligence between Lasallians and Benildians, no difference. Hindi totoo ang mga mahihina na pupunta sa Benilde. Change that. That's not true. It's also not true that those students in LaSalle who are not able to make it in LaSalle got kicked out of LaSalle, goes to Benilde. Not true. Not true. So what's the difference between LaSalle and Benilde? The way they see intelligence. For Lasallians listening to me, let's face it, LaSalle still has a very traditional view of intelligence. Talagang makikita mo na medyo bias pa rin ang LaSalle Manila towards verbal linguistic and logico-mathematical. And this is where Benilde enters the picture. How is Benilde different? They cater to all intelligences, especially to those intelligences that are undervalued in traditional schools. That's why there are a lot of courses in Benilde not offered in LaSalle. Right? Meron silang music production, meron silang fashion design, meron silang industrial design. Because whatever your intelligence is, we have the right program for you. In fact, nasa mission vision ng Benilde yan eh. 'Di ba? That they cater to, look at this, all learners. All learners. The word all there refers to this. Whatever your intelligence is, whatever the kind of intelligence you have, we have the right program for you. In fact, Saint Benilde's favorite word is inclusive. They promote inclusivity. That all kinds of intelligences identified by Gardner can be catered within their school. That's the difference between LaSalle and Benilde. So going back to my second point, again, please don't conclude that you are not smart simply because you are not good academically. High grade is not necessary to be intelligent. School training is not necessary to be intelligent. You can still be smart even if you don't attend school. Ako being a teacher, I have 2 undergraduate degrees. I have 1 masteral degree, but I believe there are people out there outside my place, did not attend school, no degrees, yet more intelligent than me. Dapat ganun yung pananaw natin. We have different forms of intelligences, and schools should not have the monopoly, should not have the dictatorial power to determine who's smart from who's not. Marami pa rin mga taong hindi nakapag-aral, hindi nakatungtong sa eskwelahan na matatalino pa rin. But don't get me wrong, am I saying drop out? No. You also need to consider the system of our society. Hindi ka naman talaga makakahanap ng trabaho kung wala kang diploma, at hindi ka makakuha ng diploma if you don't stay in school. So we play with the system. But let's not be narrow-minded to think that simply because a person did not attend school, it means he or she is not intelligent. Kasi marami mga out of school na tao na mas matalino pa kumpara sa mga tao na nasa loob ng eskwelahan. Because intelligence is not confined inside the school, it can also be shown, expressed outside the 4 corners of the classroom. In fact, there are a lot of psychologists today who are now questioning whether schools are still helping people to develop intelligence. After all, yan naman talaga ang purpose ng eskwelahan, to enhance intelligence, to add intellectual value to people so that they can improve their lives. Remember, intelligence is an asset. You make someone more intelligent, life becomes better. And schools must do that. That's the function of a school, of a college, of a university. To add intellectual value to the person, make them a little bit smarter and improve their life. But the question is, are schools still making people more intelligent? After all, the word education comes from the root word edus. And what do you mean by edus? To draw forth or to bring out. Sa Tagalog, nilalapit mo yung tao sa katalinuhan. Pinapalabas mo yung katalinuhan sa tao para ma-enjoy niya yung intelligence, madadagdagan ng value yung buhay niya, life becomes better. But when we talk about the way teachers teach in the classroom, how the syllabus are written, how the subjects are taught, what are the contents of the syllabus, are these still effective in enhancing intelligence? Dapat magpapanood ako dito ng short video pero baka kasi makopyright tayo, no? So, you can just search for this in YouTube. I want you to watch the video, What Are Schools For? So, you go to YouTube and then you just type, What Are Schools For? You watch that 5-minute video explaining the failure of schools today in making people more intelligent. Changes have to be made in terms of how we educate people inside the schools. You watch that video. It's a very powerful video that will really open your eyes on what it means to be intelligent and whether schools are still effective in making people more intelligent. Alright? So that ends this lecture. Abangan nyo yung video after this where I'm going to talk about different ways on how to improve human intelligence. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Have a great day and God bless. Bye-bye.